Welcome back, everybody. This is Beachside Tech Talk. We got Ian Utelli, Crazy Utelli, and we got Nigel and Teddy right here. We're going to talk about tech beside the beach today. I hope you enjoy.
Wow, that was very powerful. You do have better accents. That one was like kind of silly. Give me a good accent.
I was thinking of going for like the swing, but I can't do that one.
You do a pretty good Trump. How would Trump introduce the Beachside Tech Talk?
Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to talk about things. My teleprompter didn't work last week. It sucked. Awful, so bad. I told them about it. I made sure they knew. But today, my teleprompter does work. Yippee. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this very, very much.
That's pretty good.
Really do.
It's pretty good for spontaneous. I like it. One more accent.
Nigel's the best. He's the best ever.
Come on, let's trio this bad boy. Introduce us as if you were a little British boy.
Oh, yeah, I could that one. Okay.
And no, introduce us as your dad.
Oh boy.
Whoa. Okay.
Here we go.
Okay.
Here we go. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Challenge accepted. Come on, let's go.
Uh-oh.
Do you have a telephone? Well, I do too. Tech is pretty cool. We're going to talk about tech and how it's revolutionizing the future and the way that our hope-filled and faith-filled ideas can change your life. So tune in to Beachside Tech Talk with me, Ian Utilli, or I guess Malachi Utilli, my dad, Ian Utilli, my wife, Riza, or stepmom, whichever perspective you're taking, and two awesome human beings, Nigel and Teddy. Thank you for tuning in, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a winner.
Oh
Man, that was good. That was worth the price of admission.
You just walked around.
Wait. Now introduce. Now do me. Come on, introduce. Let's. Fourth time's the charm.
He taps. You get it next time.
Next time, Teddy.
How's the East Coast, Nigel? It's raining over here finally, which is nice to get a little rain on the ground. How's everything over in Tampa?
It's better. It's better now, but I feel like I got rained on twice because I'm sweating from that last performance. Classic. That was truly worth the price of admission. Good on you. Yeah.
So Teddy, you got to see Fiona Ma and Dwayne again yesterday. How was that event that you went to? What's happening over there in the Silicon Valley? You went to San Francisco.
Yeah, it was. They're in Market Street. I mean, I got to park for free. That was cool.
Wow.
My car didn't get broken into.
Free parking? Holy moly!
Because that actually.
Yeah, no. After 6, it was free. And it's or if it wasn't, I didn't read it properly and I didn't get ticketed. So, anyways, no one broke into my car. So just there, like right on Market Street. I like the venue, like that was pretty cool. And a good group there. They talked about alternative funding for startups and small businesses.
I'm good right where I'm at.
That other than venture capital. So they talked a little bit about grants and they talked about loans that are available. Fiona shared what is available from California, and then they had other experts in the area share. So it was a good panel, good networking. Yeah.
Was there anything that was like very new or something that was impactful that you learned from there?
No.
He doesn't really listen to Ghost Players. He goes to events to talk, bro, not to.
You guys have to relationship.
So there is something that I'm kind of inspired by that Fiona mentioned last week, which is this idea of going international and trying to encourage international groups to invest into California. So I do feel one of the more positive things that's happened with the Trump administration is him being unleashed to be kind of the deal maker on behalf of our country and go, get a commitment of $100 billion from this country and $250 billion from that country and $700 billion from this country and $300 billion from this company. And like, I love the idea of someone like Fiona and her counterparts and her peers having new vision for like, what if we go to Saudi? What if we go over to Dubai or Abu Dhabi? What if we go over to different parts of Europe or South America or Africa or Asia, and we say, hey, Silicon Valley's worth investing in. We're open for business. California is open for business. We want to do deals with you and invite you to participate in our economy, which I believe is the 5th or 4th largest economy in the world.
4th largest economy. The U.S., China, another one I can't remember, and then California if it were a nation.
It's wild.
I think it's it's either India or Russia.
Yeah, I was gonna say India.
Probably India.
Be my guess. So because so many people are there.
Like, look at that stat. That's genuinely insane. That we actually have such a large economy, and I think it has a lot to do with that we do things ourselves. We're not buying all of our food from other people. We are making it almost all here. And then we also have the massive benefit of having multiple major cities. Like LA is one of the biggest cities in the world. It's probably one of the most well-known cities in the entire world. And then we also have something like Silicon Valley, where constantly things are being built there. Like the place we were at when we went to that event last week was literally a like robotics facility.
It was cool.
Like, that's so cool. And
Super cool.
I was walking in there, I saw like an Iron Man hand and just like so many cool things.
Yeah.
It was really, really interesting to get to live in this kind of place as well.
Last night we watched San Andreas, which is the Dwayne Johnson movie from 10 years ago with the San Andreas fault line, kind of explaining what would happen if the entire San Andreas fault line was activated at once, what would happen if it hit the magnitude of a 9.6 earthquake. And in the movie, all the skyscrapers in Los Angeles and San Francisco fall, massive, 100-foot plus, multi-100-foot tsunami hits San Francisco. The movie's been out for 10 years, so I'm not really worried about spoiler alerts. And it was compelling. I found the movie to be more emotional last night than I had felt when I saw it in the theater, when I saw it, whatever it was, a second time. I believe I saw it twice before. And Riza had never seen it. Obviously, our family in Aptos, they're a mile from the San Andreas fault line, so it's kind of relevant, the whole idea of worst case scenarios. We love going to San Francisco. Obviously, been on the Bay Bridge and the Golden Gate Bridge, and watching that kind of destruction is like a very interesting thought of what could happen. And what it got me thinking about today is even the things that feel most stable and established. The US dollar, Bitcoin. I would say Bitcoin feels very stable and established to people. These are really stable things, but they haven't been around that long. Bitcoin's been around 15 years. The US dollar has been around maybe a couple hundred years. We aren't using the currency of Rome. We aren't using the currency of the Persian Empire or Babylon. And we forget that what once was a great store of value and exchange of value no longer is. There are so many massive cities. The president of Turkey just came to meet with Trump, as far as I saw on the news. In Turkey is Istanbul, one of the world's most important cities over the course of many millennia. I think Istanbul's roots go back like 2,800 years. Istanbul is interesting because it's a Muslim environment. It's a Muslim culture, a Middle Eastern Muslim culture. They have the call to prayer 5 times a day. Everything is kind of oriented physically and the culture around that faith. And yet Istanbul is half Europe and half Asia. And so it's a very interesting place. Almost 3,000 years of history. Very few cities have made it 3,000 years and are still thriving. The majority of massive cities like LA, like San Francisco, have risen and fallen, and either through natural disasters or through wars. And so watching cities like Los Angeles and cities like San Francisco be completely decimated and leveled by an earthquake, and then the job gets finished by a tsunami, and just seeing the land basically back to bare again, and like the entire city, everything is gone. You know, if we were to lose the power grid, like if we lost internet and electricity, all of our photos, all of our videos, all of our everything we've have that's not gold and silver and land, all that stuff would be ultimately gone, right? If we lost the power grid. And so what we've worked so hard to build, what we count on being there, is not always guaranteed to be there forever. And sometimes things don't just slowly dissipate. Sometimes an earthquake comes. Sometimes a tsunami comes, either metaphorically or real, that causes very unexpected devastation. And so I wanted to ask the five of you today, the thought, are there things that we believe are more stable? Are there things that humanity sounds like Dan thinks Jesus is the only thing we can count on?
Only Jesus, I say. Only Jesus. That's it. Yeah,
well, we felt that way for 2,000 years.
That's right. We had an interesting church last night with Psalm 139.
Yeah, tell us about it.
Super impacting and helpful. Put me in the right thought process.
Anything to share? Anything that stands out to you about it? Psalm 139?
Yeah. Being closer to God. God sees all that you do. So not to be hard on yourself. Psalms and Proverbs are great books. They are very helpful books for your flesh body and spiritual body. All wisdom comes from God. They say the book of Proverbs is probably the most fleshly orientated, or maybe Ecclesiastes. That's another one that's very for the man walking under the sun. But yeah.
I always think about, not always, but I often think about U2's quote from the last decade. They said, our early career was in the Psalms, the songs of sorrow, the songs of joy, the songs of seeking. And it wasn't until later in life, wasn't until recently that we started to get our inspiration from the Proverbs. It is interesting how different the Psalms, which are songs, that's how we would translate that, songs, are compared to the books of wisdom. Since you bring it up, I mean, why don't I just share with our audience a bit about what this is? I have this pulled up in Brian Simmons, the Passion Translation. I don't actually really think it matters what translation you use personally. There's all sorts of people that care about that type of thing. I'm not one of them, but I like this because it's easy to read. The title, which is not part of it, just what he put in, You Know All About Me. The sub note is, for the pure and shining one, King David's poetic song. So if you guys have seen on Prime, there's a new TV show called The House of David. And so my assumption is this is one of those times where David's sitting down with his harp and he's playing a tune, and all of a sudden he starts singing these words. Lord, you know everything there is to know about me. You perceive every moment, every movement of my heart and soul, and you understand my every thought before it even enters my mind. You are so intimately aware of me, Lord. You read my heart like an open book, and you know all the words I'm about to speak, even before I start a sentence. You know every step I will take before my journey even begins. You've gone into my future to prepare the way, and in kindness, you follow behind me to spare me from the harm of my past. You have laid your hand on me. This is just too wonderful, deep, and incomprehensible. Your understanding of me brings me wonder and strength. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I run and hide from your face? If I go up to heaven, you're there. If I go down to the realm of the dead, you're there too. If I fly with wings into the shining dawn, you're there. If I fly into the radiant sunset, you're there waiting. Wherever I go, your hand will guide me. Your strength will empower me. It's impossible to disappear from you or to ask the darkness to hide me. For your presence is everywhere. bringing light into my night. There is no such thing as darkness with you. The night to you is as bright as the day. There is no difference between the two. You formed my innermost being, shaping my delicate inside and my intricate outside, and wove them all together in my mother's womb. I thank you, God, for making me so mysteriously complex. Everything you do is marvelously breathtaking. It simply amazes me to think about it. How thoroughly you know me. You even formed my every bone in my body when you created me in the secret place. Carefully, skillfully, you shaped me from nothing to something. You saw who you created me to be before I became me, before I'd ever seen the light of day. The number of days you planned for me were already recorded in your book. Every single moment you are thinking of me. How precious and wonderful to consider that you cherish me constantly in your every thought. Oh God, your desires toward me are more than the grains of sand on every shore. When I wake each morning, you're still with me. Oh God, come and slay these bloodthirsty, murderous men. For I cry out, depart from me, you wicked ones. See how they blaspheme your sacred name and lift up themselves against you, but all in vain. Can't you see how I despise those who despise you? For I grieve when I see them rise up against you. I have nothing but complete hatred and disgust for them. Your enemies shall be my enemies. God, I invite your searching gaze into my heart. Examine me through and through. Find out everything that may be hidden within me. Put me to the test and sift through all my anxious cares. See if there is any path of pain I'm walking on, and lead me back to your glorious and everlasting way, the path that brings me back to you. You know, I read that because Danny brought it up, but also I'm familiar with the passage in the sacred scriptures, and there is a lot that happened at Charlie Kirk's funeral that resonates that. I remember Tucker Carlson saying, it starts with me. I'm the problem. I'm not looking out. It's me that's the problem, which is what he ends with. I think about Donald Trump, which I think was actually a joke, saying, I hate my enemies. David resounded with that. He clearly resounded with that energy. You think about the need for God, the way that he is expressing his worship to God. And, you know, there's a moment during the Charlie Kirk thing where for 9 minutes, all the singing stopped and the string instruments played spontaneously, and they played spontaneously for 9 minutes. And so you think about that just spontaneous outflow. And that's what you see in this song that David wrote, is you see this kind of spontaneous outflow from David, where he is expressing all sorts of things, worship, bitter rage, acknowledging that it starts with him. And the reality is, when I said, is there anything we can count on when we think about something like San Andreas, when we think about all that has to happen is some sort of solar flare that knocks out the entire power grid, we can't recover from it, and everything we have is gone. And yet we put so much energy into like our computers and the internet and our phones, and like we just build, not acknowledging that life is fleeting. And Danny says, well, not Jesus. And kind of coming back to the passage, which we should take comfort in, that no matter what we face, cancer or bankruptcy or divorce or physical pain, breaking bones, or societal war, or whatever it is we face, good or bad. I could name a bunch of good things. I always am leaning toward the optimistic good things. Whatever we face, this sacred scriptures has remained a constant for our ancestors for many, many, many millennia. And it's amazing that our grandfather and our grandfathers times 10 and our grandfather times 20 and times 30 and times 40, and no matter how far back we go in our lineage, many of our ancestors leaned upon songs like this that David wrote to help them through their times when they were going through famine, when they were going through pestilence, when they were going through flood, when they were going through wars, when they were going through slavery, when they were going through things changing radically, when they went through all sorts of times of innovation or loss of innovation. Many people could lean on this to recenter themselves And I do think that that is a wonderful thing for us to be open to. So I'll pause and give you guys a chance to, talk about this topic.
Well,
thanks for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for bringing it up.
I had a chance to read that before you did, and I took a lot from it. I did see the kind of irony in Trump's statements, which I didn't see. I just when you mentioned it, the kind of feeling, and it makes me think about how you interpret things. And to kind of touch back on how the San Andreas Falls and how these things seem like they happen overnight, but I don't know that things really happen as all of a sudden. I think there's not always, but there is certainly opportunities for us to prepare for things, and when we're better prepared, we feel more comforted, or at least I do. So I think in the scripture itself, knowing that you don't have to hide, I think that's the piece that's telling. Where are you going to go? God's everywhere. God sees everything. So you think about how it wouldn't be. There's no relationship we have, and at least I don't have, that's that open with another human. I mean, we could be close, but it's never that. It's never, I know everything. I know it before it happens. I know, and I think about the type of comfort that is, the type of trust, where you can, you may have a good friend or, your spouse or whoever, whoever's close to you, and they say, don't worry, I got you, but that's still never going to rise to the level of, God saying, I got you. I got you covered. So there's a trust thing, but that trust also comes, I think, in this, embodiment that we're in this human form, in being prepared, and that preparedness is seeing all the things that we have in front of us and asking ourselves with, what are we doing with what we've been given? I think is what really resonates with me. We have, we've been given this gift. We have, if, you believe that, we have a creator that is looking out for us and seeing us and always there. Not always our go-to move to consult, but always there, always at the ready. And I think it's two things. One, it's comforting, and two, it's something to aspire to. It's an example that we can hold out in front of us if we choose to do that, and pay it forward. I think pay that grace forward, because I think the best gifts in life are the ones that you can't pay back. You can only pay forward. So that's what I took from that. But it's really helpful to hear something sometimes repeatedly, things that we already know, because I think in the world that we live in, with so much obstruction, distortion, distraction, we need to make what we're doing an active practice. So that's what I got from that. So thanks, Danny, for that.
It's good. It's good. Ted, you've been in
perspective is so important
for 30 years. What are your thoughts on all this?
Well, you'd mentioned, we talked about the other day, you'd mentioned Erica Kirk's, statements at his memorial for giving the shooter. And then Trump came up afterwards, and I haven't seen his reactions afterwards, but he is interesting. Now, you characterized it. He basically said something like, I'm glad you can forgive your enemies. I can't. I don't like them. I hate my enemies. And you characterized it as a joke to get attention. It's interesting. I was talking to another friend of mine, a pastor, and our perspective changes everything. Like you characterized it a joke. I had heard it secondhand and thought, man, I put it more in the category of Trump being Trump and a little arrogant, not Christian. This other pastor had watched the whole thing, and he was really touched by Trump's comments, and he had taken them as more confessional. Like Trump is saying, wow, Charlie Kirk is amazing. He's a better follower of Jesus than I am. And you're amazing. You're better than I am. And I'm not there yet. But, the undercurrent is I want to be more like that. That's an interesting perspective, because then you get other, it's like people can experience the same event and have such divergent perspectives on it. This is why we need each other, and we need to challenge these things, and we need to press in and be more empathetic. And I believe unity is humanity's superpower. I mean, this is why humans, Homo sapiens, took over. Not because we're bigger than a mammoth, not because we're tougher than lions, not because we're tougher than the saber-toothed tigers, you know. We were able to take down mammoths because we could coordinate our actions better than anyone else. And that's the human superpower. We can communicate and we can coordinate our actions better than anyone else. That's our superpower. But it's like our Achilles heel is we keep diverting to tribalism, and we define us versus them, and then we want to, you know, look out for our own best interests and destroy the others. It's interesting that the scriptures, when Jesus in the scriptures, the highest virtue, you know, of love, and he says, do not look out merely for your own personal interests, but also for the interests of others. It's very practical there. You know, he's not saying stop looking out, stop being self-centered and looking out for yourself, look out for others instead. He says, no, of course you're going to look out for yourself. That's a good thing, but don't exclusively look out for yourself. Love others and look out for their interests. And then if you press in more of that, it's like, wow, if you really understand it, the more the better you are at looking out for others' interests, the better it will go for you.
Yeah.
But it's not about being a victim. It's about synergizing those two things.
I think what you said is so impactful. Yeah, it's so easy to ignore it. Unity is humanity's superpower. Unity is humanity's superpower. It's so easy for us to think that border means that you're the other and I am not with you because there's a line right there. But we are all humans. We all have this humanity that makes us different than everything else that's on Earth. And I think that in some theories of thought, it's assumed that humanity inherently always wants power. That we never are settled, never are okay, and that we always want more and more power. But I simply think that's not the way it is. I think plenty of people, I think all of us here aren't just yearning for more power. We, I think at least, want to make the world better. And I think there's so many people like that. And so having that closed-minded, having the goggles on where you can't see everything else kind of gets that perspective of, no, we all want power, and so we have to form our ideas in this perspective. But it's just not true because unity is humanity's superpower.
There's a book talking about what you just brought up about, you know, people's lust for power and understanding that through a different framework. It's called The Power Paradox. And basically our views of power in the common understanding are very outdated. And, you know, because power in the past was inherited, you know, like monarchies, and the power was because of the position. And their thesis is that that's very, very outdated. And that power in a modern society is really assigned by a community, and it's assigned because of noble reasons. So you gain more power in a community because you're good at bringing the community together.
Yeah.
You're able to tell stories that unite the community. You're able to inspire one another, and you have a trustworthy reputation, and you're able to help the common good. And as you do that, and as you build your reputation upon that, people assign you more power and your influence grows. Okay. But the paradox behind it is as you get more power and more power is assigned to you, the very thing that you get, getting more power, has this inherent temptation and draw to start using it for self-serving purposes. Now, and we've all seen this in, patterns. I mean, Ian and I have talked about this for ongoing over and over. How is it that people
Bro,
will
I'm always
admire-
here for you to confess to. I know you're not a Catholic. You don't have a father to go to. You can always come to me, man. Again, you always know open door.
Yeah, exactly.
Power. We understand.
That's an example of one of these jokes that you're telling a very true thing. Yes, Ian is one of my friends that I confess to. I have a group of friends who are highly trustworthy. I'm confident that they love me, but they also have a gift of calling me on my BS. So they challenge me on all my premises. So those are the ones I want to confess to, because I don't want to confess to someone who's going to say, yeah, and, emphasize my victimhood or, my self-justification. I also don't want someone who's going to throw me under the bus and use it against me. But I want someone who is going to lovingly confront me. And yes, Ian's one of those people. And I even look at how Ian is raising up and growing in his influence and being invited into, more and more, keynote positions. It's because he has this gift to unite people. He's able to tell stories that bring people together. He's able to inspire them and add value by pointing them to their higher virtues. As we grow in power and as we get more influence and all that, there's this huge draw to use it to benefit only our tribe, our family, or benefit ourselves. So the paradox is, how do we balance those two things? And it's difficult. Now, one of the things that was kind of encouraging out of that is they say, we look like, particularly in the faith community, we've all lived our own version of this, whether you're Catholic or evangelical, or I'm sure, it's not hard to look into Muslim. Malcolm X went through this, where you see a leader who's raised up, who you've looked at, and then eventually you see their feet of clay, and you see that they have been compromised. They have been living a double lifestyle. They had a different framework and said that's a natural process of modern leadership, because as the power paradox plays out in this person who has been assigned power and influence by the community, when they stray from that path, the community finds out about it and removes the power from them. And that was actually a healthy way of looking at these processes that are so heartbreaking and seeing, whoa, in some ways the system is working. Because the fact that we know about it means it's been exposed. When it was really toxic is when it was hidden. And the fact that in modern society, it's much more difficult to live a double life. I mean, humans work very hard at that. And we love living doubles lives. We love lying. So we've gotten pretty good at it. But it's harder now than it used to be.
Right.
And what happens is your power gets removed. And then, it's a hurtful scandal, but it's actually a correction mechanism. So, the thing that I'm looking at, that I'm striving for, is how do we create a system that is more robust, it's more decentralized, that has the checks and balances built in a more effective way, so that we can grow and empower leaders that as they gain power, what if we had a system that as they gain power, they're more aligned, more humble, more self-serving, and it incentivizes them serving the community even more, rather than they're tempted to serve themselves.
People say, as soon as I'm wealthy, I'm going to give so much money away. As soon as I make $1 million, then I will give $100,000 away to my favorite charity. As soon as I get this, then I will.
Not me.
Not except for Riza. Riza's the only person that's never done that.
Yeah.
And so what his response is, no, whatever you do with the dollar in your hand, whatever you do with the $100 in your bank account, is a reflection of what you'll do with $10,000 in your hand or $1 million in your bank account. Same thing goes with power. We should acknowledge that money and power show ourselves and those around us who we really are. Because when you have the power, you're going to do what reflects who you really are. Power, I don't actually think power corrupts. I don't think that money corrupts. I think that money and power show us self-awareness and others, if we care about that, but shows ourselves, here's who you really are. When you have the money to do whatever you want, you have a tendency to go and give your money to charities and philanthropy and help the needy, or you have a tendency to go spend it on prostitutes and drugs and partying. Like, now that you have the money, it reveals what matters to you, right? If you want to know what it's been said, if you want to know what really matters to you, look at your spending. Because whatever it is you spend your money on, that is the reflection of what you value. And the same thing goes for power. Whatever you do with the influence you have today, however you influence your spouse or your children or your parents or your business partners, however you influence people today is likely a reflection of how you would influence people if you had a greater platform and more authority and more of a reach. And so we need to be thoughtful, each of us 6 individually, or 5, because Danny popped out. I think he's having internet problems. We need to be thoughtful about the reality that we are likely needing to focus on the internal part of our life first before we try to go get more power or more money. You know, Jesus only described himself one time, from what I can tell, and that was right before he told people to come to him, right? He says, come to me, all who are heavy burdened. If you are overwhelmed, if you are anxious, if you feel like you can't do this anymore, come to me. Take my yoke. So in that time, there was like 2 bulls, and they put a yoke on top of 2 bulls, and the bulls would like share the yoke. And what he's saying is like, take my yoke, I will bear your burden. Come over here with your burden, and let me put my yoke on you, and I will bear your burden. It's like saying, hey, come over here, and I will lift you up, and I will carry you. That's what he's saying. And then he describes himself, and he says, I'm humble and I am meek. And so if there's one thing that we could focus on in our life when it comes to self-awareness, it's likely not to be a better steward of power or a better steward of money, but maybe the most important thing we can focus on, regardless of how much power and money we have today, or how much more we have tomorrow, or how much less we have tomorrow, is just to focus simply on, are we meek? Are we humble? You know, that is the ideal. So anyway, that's on my mind. Go ahead, Nigel.
There's something that Ted said that really landed with me. Lovingly confront, and I think it's telling in that one way we can certainly facilitate what you're talking about is to keep the right circle of people around us that will offer us good counsel. You know, give them give us the benefit of their prudent experience of life and perspective, so that we don't, find ourselves in the echo chamber of our own heads. Because I think one thing is for sure, that we all have our own biases, whether we know them or not. Some we know, some you're less obvious. But the people who are closest to us that pay attention, that actually value us, and we value their counsel, because I can't say this strongly enough. Someone who is giving you advice, it's still only, that cares about you, is still only one part of the equation. I think as humans, as individuals, us being willing to listen, willing to consider that advice is the other part. And it's equally, if not more important, because, there's people you'll tune out, for whatever reason. And I think when you have the value of that relationship where 2 people can communicate and you can say things to them that are lovingly confrontational, that will, that will challenge them, and they're able to receive or at least consider it, I think it becomes very powerful. And then we start to see the 1 + 1 = 11, and you start to see a bigger a bigger thing. Because think about it, even if 2 of us are speaking and the other 4 are listening. You know, the conversation of the 2 is now there's 4 more people to add perspective to that conversation. So it gets deeper, it gets more not necessarily complex, but it gets more insightful is the words I'm looking for. And I think that's where we're able to grow. We're able to see different things, little nuance that might actually impact what is right in front of us, might help us to be more prepared, might help us to avoid a pitfall or a pothole, and really enhance our life if we open ourselves and allow, that to happen. So that was very well put, Ted. So good on you, my friend.
I'm going to transition to something I shared when I was in Istanbul, since the president of Turkey is visiting the president. We brought it up earlier, the significance of that city. I shared something at an event called Istanbulish. What I wanted to start doing for our time together is we're going to start spending time from 12 to 12:40 and then 12:50 to 1:30. We're going to do 90 minutes from now on. We were kind of talking about going back to an hour, sticking with 2 hours. So we're going to do 90 minutes, but we'll do 40 minutes on, and then we'll take a 10-minute break and play something that feels aligned with our conversation today. We'll be right back in about 10 minutes to dive back into this broad conversation. And there's a part of this passage in Psalm 139 that talks about how God forms us. And it's a food for thought. People have used this part of 139 to try and use theology to put forth the belief in a simulation, that basically this is an organic simulation of sorts. And look, the Creator, He knit us in our mother's womb. He knows everything about us. He created us before time began, and then He spun this world into motion. So something kind of fun to think about as we're also talking about the potential of what can we count on. What happens if destruction comes? There's lots of big questions we brought up today. We'll be back again in just a moment to dive back into it.
It used to be that innovation moved very, very slowly, right? If a king or a queen wanted to innovate and make a castle, right? They want to change everything about the development of their country. And they think, we have this big vision, right? We want a place to protect our people. We want a place to celebrate together, a safe place for us to gather. How long did it take to build a castle? Generations, hundreds of years. And you imagine a king or a queen saying, we're going to do this innovation. We're going to have something new for our people. And not for us, not for our kids, not for our grandkids, but for our great-great-great-grandkids that we'll never meet. But they will honor us and our legacy because we had vision for what could be. So the question is, what kind of vision do we have in advanced technology space? For all those involved with crypto female, and I honor crypto female. I think it's amazing what SEMA and the community have done. How about for all those that are involved in the crypto, blockchain, distributed ledger space here in this region? What kind of vision do we have around innovation? You look at about 100 years ago, and the idea for innovation was to have a vehicle. But there was an entire industry for horses. There was everybody involved with breeding horses, with selling horses, carriages, and the horseshoeing, and all the different parts of the industry. It was one of the largest industries globally, was the industry of transporting ourselves using animals. And in about 20 years, we transitioned to using vehicles. Innovation. How about innovation in the last 15 years or so? I know that here, there's not a lot of people using Uber. But around the world, taxis, they just kind of disappeared for the most part, and Uber replaced them. Did anybody cry for the taxi companies? No. Why? Because people value saving time. They value having safety, knowing that the person that's driving them around, that person is accountable. How about what happened with Airbnb and hotels? Did anybody cry for the hotels, that the hotels don't have as many people inside their organization, their places? No. It was very simple. There was a better option. Go stay at somebody's home. Now imagine how fast it's going to be once we remove the middleman, that is Uber and Airbnb. What took a couple of years to transition from taxis to Uber or to transition from hotels to Airbnb, imagine how quick it will be as soon as one of the protocols figure out how to remove the middleman so that people can start to rent cars to each other using blockchain and AI technologies, when they can start to open their home to one another using these automation technologies. Innovation is just going to get faster and faster and faster. Now, if innovation is only done by the degens for the degens, if it's only done by the anarchists for the anarchists, there will be a limitation. We have to see innovation done so that every type of government will adopt it. It can't just be the developed nations. It can't just be democracies. We need every form of government, even those governments that maybe are not quite as, celebrated as others. We need all forms of government, all types of businesses to lean into innovation. So at Hedera, we are one of many layer 1 blockchains. And we try not to have an attitude of we are the best. We just recognize that we're really great at certain things. And so today I'll talk a little bit about some of the things that we think that we've had some great success with around how we do governance and the fact that we are focused on sustainability and what it is that we've done around innovation. I don't always share slides. What I usually do when I speak is I'm on a one wheel. It's like the size of a skateboard. It's like a motorcycle skateboard, and I roll back and forth. And I talk about this, and I talk about that, and I roll. But I don't have, the airplane wouldn't let me take the one wheel today, or when I came. So I'm here just walking around like a normal person. I'm not floating like I'm in the future. And what I will discuss with you today is some big concepts. Now, I don't often use slides, but here I'm going to, just to be sure that I can reinforce a few simple concepts around governance, sustainability, and innovation. I will take some time to let you ask questions if you have any. So I would encourage you to be courageous and ask some questions. Before I jump in, I'm going to say something about honor and respect. And that there can be honorable approaches that are both noble and savage. Savage is not bad, and nobility is not good. Nobility and savagery, or humility and confidence, are different ways that we express ourselves, and both of these ways can be done in an honorable and a respectful way. Something that I've come to understand about the Istanbul culture is that honor is of the highest priority, that people want to be honored and that people show honor to one another. And I think that that's a wonderful thing, and I'm happy to be here and to enjoy that part of your culture, and I have enjoyed that. I felt very honored by all of you that have welcomed me to your country, and I hope to come back many, many times. So I want to talk about this concept of nobility and savagery, or you could say humility and confidence. I don't really know what the right word is here, but I like noble savage. That's kind of my thing. And I want to talk about how nobility and savagery is really important as you think about the concepts I'm going to discuss when it comes to innovation for the enterprise by the enterprise. First of all, we live in a world that is divided, or that's what the media would tell us, right? That we're divided, that we're either Democrats or Republicans in America, or that we're part of the Labour Party or the Conservative Party in the UK, that either we are Muslims or we are Christians, that we are this ethnicity or that ethnicity, that we're male or female, that we're young or old. Now, are we really as divided as the global leaders or the media might want us to believe? Now, why would they want us to believe we're divided? Because divided people are easy to control. You see, if they're evil and if you're part of the good guys, then whoever's in charge of the good guys can easily control you. They can manipulate you. They can get you to march to their drumbeat and say what they want you to say and do what they want you to do because you're part of the good guys and those are the bad guys. Well, this happens in innovation. This happens in enterprises. This happens in governments, is that we often will have people try to divide us. And so it's like, I'm part of Avalanche, and that's the good guys. I'm part of the good guys. And I use AVAX. And everybody else, those are the bad guys. And I would propose to you that it's not about good and bad. It's about there's honorable, respectful things in all of these environments. And sometimes things don't always resonate with us because maybe some groups are more noble, more humble, more meek, where other groups might be more savage, more confident, more aggressive. But you see, one is not better than the other. Both can be quite honorable. Both can be loving. Both can be service-oriented. You know, with everything that went on with FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried, everything that went on with Luna, I got really, really concerned. So I started talking about nobility and savagery, and what I would say is that we need more noble leaders. We need more leaders that are noble, that act like kings and queens, that are here to lead by service, that are here to lead by example, that are here to set the tone of humility and respect and kindness. But we need more savage communities. We need communities to be savage and to demand nobility from leadership. We need communities to be savage and to be unstoppable, to be confident, to believe in themselves, not to cast stones at others, but to drive forth toward their specific goals and objectives. And so I want you to keep that in mind. As I talk about some of the things that we find to be really exciting at Hedera, please understand that in no way do I express a distaste for the other layer 1 blockchains or layer 2 blockchains. In no way do I see us as superior to others in all ways. We just think we're pretty good at a couple things.
Welcome back to Beachside Tech Talk. So that was something I shared. There's obviously a lot of things that are relevant to the conversation that we've had. I'll kick it over to the two of you, Nigel and Ted, to jump in and kick off our second half of our conversation. And then love to hear what your thoughts are, Riza and Malachi. Gentlemen, jump in.
Gentlemen.
Go ahead, Nigel. I see you leaning in.
I remember that one. I remember I've heard that one before, which is always good. The noble savage conversation. You know that one is such a that one can be a conundrum in a way because just like Ted mentioned, I'll go right back to this point. Being lovingly confrontational. It's like you sometimes you have to love enough to do the uncomfortable. Like I remember, I would rather end a friendship because of something I did to prevent that friend from being harmed than let them be harmed. Right. And I feel like that's a very, and I'm not saying that I'm special in any way. I just think that, this is something that I thought about very consciously and not something I believe is easy. And that's not to, glorify me or anything like that, or to say, oh, look at me. It's not that. I just think that that's a difficult thing to do because you're going to be conflicted. If you value someone as a friend, you value the relationship you have with them, but that you're going to tell them something that they're not going to like, and they may not be, and not even to say that they're bad, but it's just not news that anyone might want to hear. Right. But it's news that they need to hear.
Yeah. And
perhaps even the mere fact that it's going to have such an impact on the relationship you have is it's the confrontation that needs to happen in order for the result to be good. And then it also speaks to how close you are to that person, because if you're doing good and that person knows you, even if in the moment they might not be as forgiving or receptive, let's just say, I think in time you also know there's a fair chance that they will see the reason in what it is you did. And because you knew that when you did it, you're in a better position to be accepting of it. I understand why you did that. Because sometimes what I find interesting is this. If your cup runneth over, right? Let's say you got some great news. Life is amazing right now. Like, yeah, I'm winning. Yeah, you know. But you go to share this news with someone who's not having a great time.
Right.
You know, they're not having a great time. It's always fascinating to me how that could go sideways. And what I mean by that is this: your cup is super full. I mean, life's good. You know, you can't be more bountiful. And you share news, and the person is not in a position to receive it because they're not having a great time. And they're like, oh, you're always talking about what you're doing or whatever. And you immediately go to, you're never happy for me. And now it becomes a thing. The ironic part to me, and the part that I find so curious, is this: you have so much in your cup. Your cup is at 150. This person's might be at 15. You could pour out 70% of what is in your cup, you know, give them a little bit to build them up. But instead, you take it the other way, and they don't have it. They don't have it to give, you know. So one of the things that I remind myself of, and I hope somebody else take, even if one person takes something out of it, is recognizing that 100% doesn't look the same every day. Someone could be giving you 100%, and that's all they have.
Yeah.
You know, but you see it as, well, it's not the same energy as yesterday. Of course not. I just lost a leg. What do you expect me to do? You know, yeah, I was running like Usain Bolt yesterday. My leg is gone. No. It's got to be the same level. It just doesn't make sense. So I think if we even take the time, even in this moment, to recognize that 100% doesn't look the same, and people can be giving you 100%, and it's up to you, especially if you have it in you. You know, you can't give from an empty cup, right? So, but if your cup is overflowing, you know, it's hard for me to, like, if you just take a little time, you'll see the value of it. And it also, for me, I mean, you know, gratuitously, gratitude champion and all, it's a way for you to be more grateful for what you have. If you see someone struggling and you're not, you know, to me, that's a sign, you know, that's God telling you, look at how much you have, you know, versus somebody else. Not that we need to be comparing, but I think it's a good indication of what it is. And if you can share a little, if you could just even, and I mean, not even give anything away, just have the empathy to see that someone could be giving you 100%, but it just doesn't show up that way because of their circumstance. I think it could go a long way to helping.
Am I coming through?
We hear your voice.
Do I move?
But you're frozen, but you don't have one of those kind of like dummy looks. You look brilliant. You look bright.
It must be frozen on a different image than it is that I'm seeing. Yeah, this is a good conversation. I wish I wasn't frozen out.
It doesn't matter. We can hear you, so go ahead.
Forgot what I was going to say.
Oh man, it must have been important, huh?
It was super important, man.
You see, when Nigel was talking earlier about how some people close to you say those things that you need to hear, that's the kind of guy who just...
Did Ted really need to hear that right now?
No, even when Ted does not need to hear it, Dad says it. You say it no matter what.
Yeah, no, it's courageous love, and it makes me think of you know, love puts the other before yourself, you know. And are we willing to risk a relationship because we care about the good of the other person more than we care about?
Where's the line put? Because when I hear that, it makes me think, and this is kind of me talking to myself, like, why are you doing that? It brings that thought of like, oh, cool, then I'll just tell people what to do. And it's like, no, obviously that's not the way that that's meant to be implied.
Well, I can share a concrete example.
Where is this line meant to be drawn? Where it becomes, and it's not meant to be a solid line. Of course, it's liquid, it moves, but what makes something a situation where it is something that you should say and you should try and help them? Or what makes it a situation where you're just telling them they're fat at that point and you're not actually helping them? That's just an example. But where is that line drawn in a sense?
Yeah, I'm the type of guy that, really cares about relationships. I think we're probably all in that similar place, but there's other people that are so concerned about the truth. Confronting someone is easy. That's their default position. They're the ones going around telling everyone what they're doing wrong. Oh, that they're fat, and they're not afraid to blow up a social circle because of the truth. I never resonated with those type of people, but when I was caught in a situation where I knew the right thing to do was to confront somebody, and I had this conversation with it was an internal conversation that, because of my spiritual worldview, I attribute it to speaking with the Holy Spirit. I didn't want to confront him. And I felt the Holy Spirit saying, that's the very reason why I need you to do it. Because if you do it, you're uncomfortable, which means you'll be gentle and you'll be kind. If you don't do it, someone else is going to have to do it. And it's probably going to be one of those people that just love confrontation. And they're going to do it without any concern for that other person's well-being. And it'll be harmful. And, it's like you have to put others' interests in front of your own. And I remember we were at an event, and it was an overseas trip, and we had lots of people there, and so there's lots of opportunities that come up of when you have to confront people. One of the things I learned out of that is you never know how someone's going to respond until you do it,
right?
Until you have a courageous conversation,
right? And
some people I thought would have no problem receiving correction, and it was a minor thing that I needed, they needed to change on, and they blow up and are cowardly, and it becomes a big issue. And like, this was no big issue. Shouldn't have been.
Right.
Easy to resolve. And I never saw it coming. And then on the flip side, somebody else, I thought, this is going to be really sticky, man. I don't know how I can say this in a way that saves face. They're going to get blown out. Man, I sure hope it doesn't get blown out. And I kind of wrote them off as immature, and someone like, oh, well, I got to do it anyways. And what I thought was going to be the most difficult conversation was the easiest. And like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know that. They immediately, saw the other perspective and changed. And what I learned through that is you never know how someone's going to respond, right, until you take the courageous step and do what you need to do.
I think the simple answer, in a way, is if you really want to tell someone what to do, or you really want to confront, probably shouldn't do it. But if it's the kind of thing where you know, in a way, that you feel like it's what's right to do, but you don't want to do it, you probably should.
Yeah, that's well put, Malachi. Now, can you say that in your dad's voice?
It's good to see you back in the Aptos Forest, Dan. Glad you jumped on. You look clear, you sound clear, so we'd love for you to jump in and share.
I don't know. I'd love to. I don't know where you're at. I've been having bad service. I haven't heard really any of the conversation today. I'm trying to figure out where I can get some decent internet and be able to be here. So sorry about that for any inconvenience.
No problem. Well, if you broke down Psalm 139, not to say that this is an accurate breakdown, but if we broke it down into three parts, the massive majority of it starts off with worship and adoration and acknowledgement of the significance of David, the songwriter, and his relationship with the Creator, who, the Jews call Elohim or God, Yahweh, different words for the same thing. Jesus called Daddy. We often call the Creator God or Father, Lord, things of that nature. and he writes this song. The second part is kind of him expressing his anger and his rage toward his enemies, which is a strange thing to have, as the Oreo frosting in the middle of the two chocolate crackers. And the end is interesting because it really signifies a lot of energy around, you know, the numbers of hairs on my head. You knit me in my mother's womb. You created me before time began. And so this, what I mentioned earlier, has been used by people to try to bring a theological framework to the idea of we are in an organic simulation, or we are in one way or another experiencing a matrix type of environment. Ideally, people wouldn't think of it as some sort of dystopic thing like it's shown in the movies, but this idea that our soul, our spirit, maybe existed, and our soul or spirit was then put into our life, our body, this organic experience, to experience this one-time thing of this journey of life, only to then go back to eternity where it began, etc. There's a lot of ways of looking at it, but it is interesting that people do use Psalm 139 as a potential framework for that very thing. And so, you know, I mentioned that because I started off talking about San Andreas, the movie, and the fact that even the biggest cities in the world can be wiped out. The acknowledgement that the things we count on, like US dollars or Bitcoin, there's no guarantee it'll be around in 10,000 years. There's a lot of things that aren't around from before. I acknowledged early, like things like Istanbul is a city that's lasted, you know, for many, many millennia. And now looking at Psalm 139, as I first said, you know, what can we count on to the five of you? What can we count on? Like if we lose all power and internet and everything that we have with their connected phones and computers are gone, what can we count on? And at that point, that's when you said, Dan,
Okay.
Jesus,
Yeah.
139. Hold on, Teddy. Hold on. So go ahead, Dan.
Well, if all of that goes away, falls apart, and we kind of lose what we would think would be everything, you still got the greatest thing, and I'm glad we're talking about the Psalm 139. You still have God, and ultimately he is in control. And so through his word, what I've taken from it is that there's an everlasting life that we're going to have for those who want to partake and participate. So yeah, I think that doomsday kind of thing, that seems like as technology grows, as we continue to grow through hundreds of years, and now where we're at is someplace we've never been before. It moves faster. It's almost out of our own control. We're trying to play catch up just to feel integrated. And the greatest thing is that, I'm going to say it again, God's in control, so we should never fear. And I still struggle with that too. I'm not the guy who's going to sit there and I don't have fears and I don't have, struggles. I've been going through a couple of little things lately, but yeah, God's in control. I'm making my efforts. I'm doing the work. And so I'm not going to fear that doomsday scenario because ultimately my faith is going to save me.
Thank you. It's so motivating to hear someone else say something like, yeah, there are things that aren't awesome right now, but I'm still glad and still praising. That's something that is so admirable. And it just reminds me that I can feel that way too. Even when things aren't going awesome, there's still plenty that is going awesome that might not be in my immediate vicinity. And that's such a glorious thing to get to know.
Yeah. That verse 14 on that Psalm 139 says, I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. So that reverence carries a lot in the fact that, and then like you were saying, Ian, earlier in the Jeremiah, the first 5 verses, there is an incredible amount of time that is spanned in that. If like you had mentioned, if you were created before you were put in the womb, that's God telling you you were somewhere before you were human form. So he's created that, and he is manifesting that through his wishes. So our obligation, our job is to please him. And I think that's the most important takeaway I get from it. Teddy, I'm sorry if I cut you. You go ahead. You were about to say something. Sorry about that.
What can we count on, and what if San Andreas happens, and we're all battling unexplained technical difficulty that you cannot write off to user error. It's not know how to use our computers.
Try the opposite
Let's
thing.
Play the devil.
Tech. Different rules for you and me, huh, Teddy?
I have a question for you, Ian. You had mentioned you started this out with Istanbul.
Yeah.
And been around for three millennia.
Yeah,
city.
Something like that.
And how rare that is. So I fact checked it and looked at, longest, continually inhabited cities. I just have a question. Off the top of your head, in Europe alone, where do you think Istanbul ranks in the longest continually inhabited cities? We're not talking about Africa. We're not talking about China. We're not talking about America. Just in Europe, where do you think it ranks?
5.
I would have guessed 1.
3.
Now
3.
I'm questioning. I just can't think of anywhere in Europe that I know of that has stuff all the way. We're trying to think. I guess Rome. I guess Italy. I guess Italy might be longer than because obviously the Colosseums were made 2,000 years ago. So that's as far as I understand, or more than 2,000 years ago. So that would be one example. But when I think about like Northwestern Europe, I don't know that Northwestern Europe has that old of culture. I know that like Ukraine, Sergio's given me something with Ukraine, and it was a monument from like 1,000 years ago. So I imagine there's probably parts of Ukraine or Russia or the Eastern European nations that go back 1,000 or more years. But if I had to guess one place that'd be the oldest, my guess would be Rome, Italy.
Yeah, I had thought of Athens. Anyways, I'm assuming we all would accept Wikipedia as a shared authority. So going off of Wikipedia, Istanbul is 3 millennia, but it's like 2000. I think it was 600 BC. So I guess that's 2,625 years. And it's actually number 20.
Holy moly!
You were right about the Ukraine. There's several cities there that were. But Portugal is Lisbon is older than
Did your
Istanbul.
wife tell you to say this? Is this really? Were you ever still?
No, of course I noticed Lisbon, of course, and it's from. It was first settled by the Phoenicians in 800 BC, and it's been continually inhabited. I know that part of the thing that I'm obviously more familiar with Lisbon than I am with the rest of Europe, but it did have. It did have a major earthquake, and the whole city was destroyed pretty much. So, and then it was rebuilt. So that I think that happened around the Marquês de Pombal. I think that happened around the time of American independence. So it's kind of funny because in Lisbon, the old part of the city, the new part of the city is 200 years old.
Yeah.
The old part is, thousands of years old. So they have a very, very different time frame than we do as Americans. But that was interesting to me. And I think, that I mean, it wasn't just you. My initial reaction was, I was curious to see. But we all have this perception. But to see that there's 20 cities above, or 19 cities above Istanbul, that have been continually inhabited.
What's
3 millennia?
What's 1 through 3? Give me 1, 2, and 3.
I have to go back to Wikipedia.
Okay, forget it. I thought you had it right there.
How
entropy, I have it in my phone.
Just the randomness of living in this world and being a part of humanity can so deeply affect things in a way that we didn't expect. Like, we're all used to just life the way it is right now, for the most part. where we don't expect my house to just all of a sudden the roof falls down. I don't expect that I just fall in a hole to the middle of the earth or something, because that doesn't make sense in my frame of reference. But who knows? It could be possible if a massive earthquake happened, or if whatever God decided to do happened. And it shows in that Lisbon example. I think that was the name of the city. And I think it's just so fascinating how can so easily get kind of sucked into like just the day-to-day life and getting used to the way that humanity operates, but yet everything could change. And I'm not just saying this for the sake of saying this. I'm trying to point towards in the future when people are 2,000 years after now and they're reading those things on Wikipedia or Futurepedia and they're looking at it says 4 millennia or 5 millennia. What are they going to think about this place? What are they going to think about San Francisco? What are they going to think about Florida? What are they going to think about Miami? Like, are they going to see these patterns that we never even thought comprehensible? Like, over time, tectonic plates might move a little bit, and that would be such a wild thing to actually comprehend, that this land was here and now it's not, or this land wasn't here and now it is. Those are just some examples of the way that things will change so much over time, and it makes me ask the question of what will people think about this current time when it's 2,000 or 1,000 or 3,000 years in the future.
Well, if you look at all the continents, it does look like a big puzzle piece that you can put together as one piece of land.
Yeah. Not only that, they've had excavations in Siberia and places that are completely frozen tundra from all that we know, and have found mammoth bones. I'm trying to think where it was. Somewhere near Siberia, they found a fossilized mammoth that was still had buttercups in his mouth. In other words, whatever, and he was perfectly like preserved. It wasn't broken bones. He didn't get all jacked up. It was like fell down, died that like quick. Still eating something. He still had food that he was chewing in its mouth, which makes you think: was that the giant meteor that hit in Mexico that kind of supposedly maybe scorched the earth for a minute and wiped out the dinosaurs? But to your point, Ian, about the puzzle pieces kind of going together, it makes no sense that animals that lived in tropical areas like a mammoth, like a woolly mammoth, would ever be in a zone. You can't live out there. Animals can't live out there in those things. So making you think that maybe those things kind of broke off and separated and moved around the globe, and what was is not what is.
Yeah.
Ted,
I have the list.
Okay, I was thinking number one. I know number one.
Okay, guess.
Atlantis.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that is. That's number two. No, there's no Atlantis on here. Plovdiv. It's in Bulgaria, and it's 6,000 BC.
Wow.
What?
Wow. What about the? Oh, that was here. You were
Argos.
Talking specifically Europe. Okay. I was going to say
this is just Europe. I'm not looking at Argos, which is in Greece. It's 5,000 BC.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Now, these are not just old settlements that people have found. These are continually inhabited cities.
That's incredible.
Chania, which is in Crete in Greece, fourth millennium BC.
Wow.
Then Thebes, which is also in Greece, 3,000 BC. Athens comes after that, 3rd millennium BC. Then Shkodra.
What was the first one again, Ted?
In Albania.
In Bulgaria.
What was the Bulgaria. First one that 6,000 years old? That first one was
Plovdiv, 6,000 BC. So 12,000. 8,000 years.
We can.
And that was near Bulgaria, you said? Where
it's in modern day Bulgaria.
Wow. I've never even
in
heard.
Neolithic Europe and Iron Age Europe.
Risa, how long have
continually inhabited? Lisbon is
I have no idea.
so Lisbon and Istanbul are Johnny come latelys.
Riza, how long have
is
the
not.
Philippines been around? No,
Those are the Lisbon is a stepchild, huh?
I guess so. Let's see. I'm gonna look at this is interesting. I want to see what China
That
is.
is super interesting. I didn't know. I thought that the oldest known human heritage, like you're saying, like a living thing, was like those old Ming dynasties in China, and those only go back like 5, right? Like 5,000. I don't think I've ever heard of anything going back 6,000, and that's incredible.
and 1,000 years is, I don't know, kind of a long time.
Well, it's one day to God.
Okay, so China, like the oldest one, is from the Qing dynasty in Yanqi.
How old?
That's from, but that's only 2000 BC. So I guess that's older than Istanbul or Lisbon, but not near the other ones.
So I guess the point is we've been around here for a minute.
Well, also human beings
Culture
are very, very bad at figuring out and understanding and comprehending, even if we have the math put right in front of us, the likelihood of rare events. So my initial thing is that Ian had watched this thing and that event, that scenario for San Andreas is extremely, extremely unlikely. And that was kind of skewing his understanding of then, Istanbul and all that, which this is an interesting thing because, when you have something like San Andreas in the pop culture, and this is how, obviously it's fiction and it's not even, it's Dwayne Johnson. Okay. So, he's not known for being like.
Careful what you say about The Rock, bro.
Okay. The Rock is a movie star. He's not an actor. Okay. He's not known for, historical accuracy or whatever. Okay. But still it shapes our understanding of it. But how it's like, it's so skewed, so unrealistic, so sensational, but yet we don't know how to actually prepare for what is most likely to come. And, we have this extreme and another thing we've talked about, which is to me is related, is eschatology. And particularly in the Christian evangelical world, our view of eschatology is very dooming. It's been dominated in the last century when people think this has been historical. It's not. It's very modern by this doom and gloom, fear of the Antichrist, fear of, the one world government, and basically sees that our view of the future, or the view of the future that is predominant within this Protestant evangelical thing, is that Christians are going to be persecuted more and more and more. The one world order is godless, and the general trend of history is going to get worse and worse until then there's an apocalypse and Jesus comes back, but he's come back to rescue the few faithful, and then the rest of the earth is going to be judged. And how skewed, how wrong that is, and how actually this is the predominant view within Protestant evangelicals today, or maybe not today. I don't know what it is today, but definitely 20 years ago, okay, or 30 years ago for sure. That was the predominant view. Now they're shifting more, but that is a historical aberration that really only took place after World War II. And is modern. It's not the historical view of Christianity for sure. But how do we, and I would argue it's not biblical, although the people who are adherent to it, believe it is, but it's not the historical view. And, we're so, how do we get our view of the future so off? When I think a much more accurate view is from a Christian. I'm talking about from my Christian worldview, not my just technological futurist worldview, is much more optimistic. And there's many trends of history that humanity's getting better and improving. So we're not good at predicting low likelihood events and how much we should, be concerned about them. And that skews our view of the future, which then changes what we do right now. And we've got to get better at that.
Well, I think AI can make, will definitely start to shape some of that, whether or not, your output is true. But somehow I find as humans, we have this remarkable talent for making the impossible possible, and not necessarily always in a good way. I think that you look at San Andreas, as unlikely as it might be, but I'm not necessarily a fan, but a believer in the whole Murphy's Law. If there's a way to break something, it seems like we as humans are predisposed to find it. Like we just kind of seem to, whether it's knowingly or unknowingly, we seem to be going down that path. So you would see this, this is unlikely. Well, just merely asking, well, how could it happen? And then, there's people, don't have, good intentions or just curious, like, let me see what will happen. I, for one, do not fall into the camp of things can't happen, good or bad. I was talking this morning. That to me is the foundation of way too many issues. I mean, it's the culprit. When you believe things cannot happen, good or bad, you put yourself in the crosshairs of real problems, in my view. Because I can tell you countless times in my life, I've watched things happen and heard people say, I don't believe it. And I'm thinking to myself the whole time, how could you not see that coming? I saw that a mile away. It was like, it was obvious, so.
Along with what you're saying, I just bashed a movie I haven't seen, or I wasn't really bashing it, but there are massive cities that they're now discovering in the Amazon, massive cities. And that apocalypse was overnight from a historical point of view, and they still haven't figured out why. And like, okay, so there you have a historical example, of like, wow, something happened. And with technology that was very, very advanced overnight, not exactly overnight, but in a very short period of time, those cities disappeared, and they went from massive cities, like bigger than anything Europe had at the time, like hundreds plus, over 100,000 inhabitants. And now they're just grown over, and they didn't even think they exist. And now our technology is uncovering these. It's like, oh, wow. Yeah. Societies can very rapidly change.
Yeah.
But how do we mitigate the risks that we should be looking out for, not overreact to risks that are unlikely and then miss the ones that are most likely? How do we properly prepare? How do we act in this? How do we position ourselves for the future?
I think you already solved it, Ted. It's lovingly confrontational. Think about every movie we've ever seen about apocalypse, right? Like The Day After Tomorrow. We already know, we have answers to these things. If the world's going to come to an end and only certain people are going to survive, the people with the talent and the skills to do things, they're going to be the ones who are going to get picked for kickball. It's not going to be the folks who, look cool or say cool things. And we already know this. We know that things can happen. Like right now, if a zombie apocalypse happened, I'm pretty sure that each one of us know the people we would prefer to be around in that situation. And it's bigger, like not bigger, but it will, one, in times of disaster, if you're a believer, you want to be around other believers. Now's not the time to go, start to me going outside of breaking ranks, if you would. Let's keep it tight so that we can, amplify our belief. But skill sets, God blessed us with brains. Let's use some of these. You can build houses. You can defend yourself. You can cook. You can lead. It's not going to be the guy who says, well, I'm worth $20 billion and you do what I say because you want, no, not going to be that guy. Not going to be that girl. It's going to be folks with actual tangible things. I think we know some of this stuff. We just don't say it because sometimes out of convenience and sometimes out of necessity because, we need to check, or whatever the case may be. And no knocking it, but that I think we do know some of these things, and the more we investigate, the more we have these discussions, the more we ask the questions. Dare I say, I think we could do well with having these types of discussions in school. I know we didn't when I was going to school, and something you said, Malachi, that I thought was very interesting. I only have my frame of reference. So yes, at your age, there's certain things that you've never seen. You only know what you know. And I had to discover this with my own son, recognizing that I can't be too critical of saying things like, you don't seem grateful for all that you have. I didn't have that well, he didn't know that. He's like, I woke up like this. Like I came out the wound, with a phone, with $1,000 phone, and all these other things. What do you want from me? That's all I know, So I can't really talk about that legitimately. At the same time, as you get older, like you're sitting in this room, you have the benefit of other people who know these things, who've seen some more things, who've gone through a few things. You can ask questions, you can research, you can find out what it is, and understand that we all have a gift, and what we do with it matters.
Mm-hmm.
So there.
And then
go ahead, please, Jamie.
Don't forget too that what I just am remembering is that we have lost civilizations. Civilizations have grown very large and have been, I don't want to say wiped out, but wiped out. The only thing that's left of them is the memories of what they are, and maybe some of their artifacts. For instance, the Aztecs and the Mayans. Those are two crazy civilizations that people don't really talk about too much. I don't know a lot about them, but I do know they were in, like Ted was saying, tropical, maybe not the Amazon, maybe South America. I think the Aztecs and Mayans came from, but those civilizations were thriving, very, very successful civilizations, and they seem to have walked off the earth. Their temples and their carvings and things like that are still there, but the proof of the civilization seemed to have just been kind of like erased. They weren't able to find pots and stones and arrowheads and things like that they there, but they do know that they were there, and they do have their artifacts. They were, so I think they were the first civilization that was actually able to correctly document some of the star patterns, and our modern day calendar comes from Aztec and Mayan, and with some changes that were gone along, but an incredible civilization. How about back in the Bible days, the Philistines, that just come, but there's so many. And where did they go? And the point I'm trying to get to is we need to be cognitive of that, because those were giant civilizations, big or maybe not bigger than America itself, much older, and something had happened that the culture disappeared and turned into something else. So, I'm sure that those, the cultures I'm talking about never planned on ever being gone, where they don't have descendants of that pure, or they don't have that city that they live in, and that cultural environment that they created. It's just, the only thing you're going to learn about it now is through history books.
Yeah.
Yep.
If I could.
So Nigel wrote, consider this, message one person you're grateful for, just because it's Thursday and they matter. We agree. People matter, and it's important to reach out and love people. We are at our time. So Malachi, why don't you go ahead and wrap us up, and we'll be back again tomorrow, everybody. Go ahead, son.
We've talked a lot about civilizations today as a whole. And what's running through my mind is, you look at how there's plenty of these amazing, grand, beautiful civilizations, like the Aztecs, that's in South America. They were huge. Or like the Incas, those were also in South America. They were huge. Or you look at ones that we know a lot about, like the Greeks and the Romans. They thought they were never going to go away, but look what happened. And so if we take a perspective of someone living on the earth or living somewhere completely different in like 2,000 years, and you think, what are they going to think about this time right now? Ted has mentioned plenty today about how we have things that are extremely unlikely to happen, but yet we don't really have that correct comprehensibility over it. And that's because we have these things that we know exist, but we don't have any data for it. We know that earthquakes exist and that they have this, maybe that, but we don't have enough data to know what an earthquake really does and how long it takes and any patterns to give us enough knowledge over it. We just don't have the data. And it's just, earthquakes is just one example. And so looking at the future, when they do have the data and they say, we are almost certain the earthquake is going to happen right now, so we're going to prepare for it. When those types of problems aren't as much of a problem for them because they've tamed the earth, how can we look at that future and decide, I'm going to take off my goggles and I'm going to decide that I'm going to try and make it so we get to that future? Because we can. We are humanity. One of the things that's been ringing throughout this entire conversation is that the superpower of humanity is that we are united. And when we are, we do amazing things. So let's unite and let's get to that future where we know when the next earthquake is going to be.
Good.
It is good. Peace, everybody. May you be well.